In this section, we want to talk a little bit about, just as we wade into the study of organizational design, what are some of the mindsets from a total business perspective we ought to have as we go about doing that. I'm not going to give you narrated lectures on every single chapter because, again, your textbook does a good job of that, and I believe the interaction we're going to have as you journal about the textbook, I think you're going to see plenty of good payoffs from that. But I did want to just sort of help us get the right frame of mind as we move into the specifics of organizational development and design that I think will sort of set the stage for that. What you see before you here are three basic areas. These are the three basic areas or functions or tasks or however you want to label these things, but the three basic functions of any organization. And the three basic functions or departments any organization is going to have, whether it's a large organization or a small organization, even if it is a not-for-profit or a governmental organization, large or small, it's going to have some semblance of these three basic areas or functional areas. And the areas are operations, marketing, and finance. Operations, marketing, and finance. Basically, and again, I challenge you to think about this for yourself, but in any organization, we got to make it and deliver it, we got to sell it to the customer, and we got to manage the money. And so in a business that makes pretty good sense. If we're Apple Computers, we have to listen to the marketplace, we got to listen to the customer, find out what they want. We then have to make it, which is the operational side of it. We make it and we deliver it, and then we got to be good stewards of the finances all through that whole process. There, we got to be sure that not only are we being profitable and watching expenses while also maximizing profits, we got to then turn back around and reinvest those profits in operations and marketing so that we continue to stay ahead of the competition who's out there trying to do the same thing. And so marketing, operations, and finance, or operations, marketing, finance, the three basic functions that any organization is going to have. And it makes sense when you think about a business entity, but even a not-for-profit is going to have this. As a consultant, I get I have the good fortune of working with a lot of not-for-profits, and even in a not-for-profit organization, you have marketing. You've got people, or I beg your pardon, you have other organizations who are competing for the dollars of your constituents or your donors or whichever. So you've got to market your cause. You've got to raise awareness of your cause. You have to convince the world of the merits of your cause and convince the donor that there's value in supporting that cause. So most definitely there's marketing that has to go on there. On an operations standpoint, we've got to make it and deliver it. That is, go about taking the resources we're given and move toward accomplishing the goal of solving that problem, whether we're trying to cure muscular dystrophy or cure breast cancer or help the victims in Haiti or whatever we're doing. We got to be sure that operationally we're maximizing the investments that we've been given control over there, that we're making it and delivering it, so to speak, as efficiently as possible. And even if we're not for profit, we've got to be good stewards of the money. We've got to not lose money at the very least. At the very least, we've got to not lose money as a not-for-profit. But it's also helpful if we can channel that money back into the organization in a way that helps make us better at what we do, so next year we're better and more efficient and can move closer to the goal of accomplishing the cause. So I encourage you to think about that on your own. But marketing, operations, and finance, the basic elements of any organization, whether it be a for-profit or a not-for-profit. I've done this before as a triangle and put the customer or the stakeholder at the center, and that's one way to look at it. I kind of like the idea, though, of the three circles overlapping, because I'm trying to showcase that all of these departments are important. And So it's helpful to recognize as the decision maker, you'll probably have greater expertise in one area or the other, but it's important to recognize the role that these various areas play and how they need to be able to interact. I mean, it's helpful, for example, if as we're marketing, if we're showing a return on our marketing dollars as we're doing it. I mean, typically we think, well, we'll market and we'll get the sales and then we'll see how the bottom line turns out, at the end of the year. Even if as we're marketing, if we can say, okay, how can we spend these marketing dollars as efficiently as possible, and how can we monitor what marketing dollars we're getting the most return off of so that we can be efficient in that regard. And of course, operationally, how as we operate daily, can we maximize the efficiency of this operation so that we're doing the very best possible to accomplish the goal of the organization, so that all of us, including the people we serve, can reap the most benefit from it. But marketing, operations, and finance. Your textbook does not explain it quite that simply, but in reality, folks, that's what it comes right down to. Marketing, operations, and finance, the three basic areas of any organization. Just as there are three basic functional areas of business, there are also various systems that go about making the business or the organization successful. And if you look at a really, really successful organization, that organization is going to be that success, and regardless of how you measure that success, whether you're talking about awareness, whether you're talking about profits, whether you're talking about satisfied customers, whatever you look at, a successful organization, that success is going to be the byproduct of having good systems in place. And a lot of what your textbook will talk about is these systems and their components. I just want to make sure that as we move into that discussion throughout the textbook, that we understand that the business that's going to win is going to be the one that has the best system. In fact, an example you'll see me use a lot, and the textbook even uses it, is of McDonald's. McDonald's, you're probably thinking to yourself that you could make a lot better hamburger than McDonald's can. You may even know of a small business that makes a lot better burger than McDonald's does. But the reason McDonald's is a worldwide multi-billion-dollar corporation and has success on such a large scale is because they have a set of systems that are fine-tuned and can be replicated, and so on and so forth, because a great manager like you got in there and understood the importance of the system and how to build the system and all that. But three basic categories of systems. Three basic categories of systems are hard systems, soft systems, and information systems. The hard systems are just that. They're the tangibles. That is our location. That's our uniforms. That is the color scheme of our letterhead and these kind of things. The things that have a degree of tangibility. The bricks and mortar kind of a thing. The soft systems, though, are the training and the philosophy that go into our organization. It's the language we use, it's how we answer the phone, it's a whole bunch of cultural things, it's the vibe that we generate amongst our employees and our customers. It's what people say about us. In fact, one of the best definitions of a brand, and a brand is just culture, was said by Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon. He said, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And that's an offshoot of good soft systems in terms of how do we go about taking care of our customers. And of course, you could also say that the data entry systems and the warehousing systems, the hard systems, are also part of what makes Amazon successful. So hopefully you're already beginning to see how these things can fit together and have overlay. And then of course the other one, there's information systems. How do we keep track of the vast amount of information we need to make decisions? And how do we, as a manager, take that most precious resource and manage that and nurture it and turn it into profits, basically. So our information systems are external to the environment, that is understanding what's going on in the world of the customer and what the economy is doing, what the sentiment about the economy is, and is legislation more more pro or anti-business at the moment, and all these things that we need to study and become sort of variables in that decision-making equation, but also the internal information system. So we find out how do our customers perceive us, how do our employees perceive us, and how well are our hard systems and soft systems working, and so forth. So there's a lot of potentially there's a lot of overlap in how these systems come together, but I hope also you can see that it's tremendously valuable to know what these things are and how we can, as managers, can manage them. This is discussed in great depth in your textbook, especially in some of the latter chapters. But again, my goal in this overview is just to sort of get our minds around how this is all going to fit together, the what's in it for me. Because if I'm in your shoes and somebody's going to ask me to invest 7 weeks learning about a subject that may be unfamiliar to me, I want to know, where's my payoff? How am I gonna take what I learn in this class and go now and pay off this MBA degree and then profit from this MBA degree? So just talking about setting the stage for what this is all about. It's been suggested by me, in fact, I'm the one that suggests it, that I teach a lot of my business classes like philosophy classes. Because anymore I don't know what a right or wrong answer is. I mean, you take the example of Fred Smith. Fred Smith, several years ago, Fred Smith was the founder of FedEx. Fred Smith wrote a business plan in an MBA class for this idea of a hub and spoke system to do overnight package delivery. Totally unique, totally well, it was a unique idea to the package industry. He actually got the idea, quick aside here, he got the idea from a banking class he took. He looked at how the Federal Reserve System, the Reserve Bank, could clear checks like in 3 days from all over the nation, and he said, well, why couldn't you use the hub and spoke system to move packages around? So he came up with this idea, wrote this business plan, turns it in, and the professor says, well, it's an interesting idea, but, come on. This will never fly. There's not enough demand for overnight package delivery. And the Postal Service has that service anyway, or something like that, and gave Fred Smith a C on the paper. He gave him a C on the business plan that he wrote that would later become FedEx. Because fortunately, Fred, said, well, this guy doesn't agree, but doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Doesn't mean it won't work. And so Fred Smith goes to work figuring out how can we make this thing work. And FedEx today is synonymous with overnight delivery. If it absolutely, positively has to be there overnight, you're going to call FedEx. Because Fred Smith looked at the world and said, how can I take these ideas and adapt them? And had almost a philosophical view of how business should be approached. So we'll study plenty as far as textbook concepts go, but as I'll mention in the next few slides here, could I suggest to us, professionals, that we'd be far better served on the bottom line if we could view the study and practice of business more as a philosophy than a science? Just like us to think about that. One of the big criticisms that is often leveled at the MBA is that we learn a lot of vocabulary. We learn a lot of buzzwords to throw around, but we don't necessarily learn a lot of approaches and techniques and tactics and even philosophies that can help us go about solving business problems. And so I think that's a worthwhile criticism, so I would urge us to bear that in mind. There's plenty of working knowledge and terminology in the study of organizational design that it does behoove us to add to our vocabulary and know, but I don't want us to get all hung up in trying to memorize the glossary of the textbook. We're trying to memorize the dictionary in terms of all business terms. There are some power words, though, that can be profitable for us. I'm going to talk about just some of those. And again, talking about them from a philosophical standpoint as much as from a definitional or scientific standpoint. One big one is process. I think we've learned over the years that success is not an event but a process. Just as the old saying goes, that life's a journey, not a destination. Success is very much a process and not an event. The graveyard, ladies and gentlemen, is full of organizations that got to a level of success, maybe even an unprecedented, monumental level of success, and they got to sitting around the boardroom reading their own press clippings and got knocked off by a hungrier competitor. what we want to think about is process. That business itself is a process. There ain't no finish line. That we want to develop a process, that getting to a process is in itself a process, and that we want to continually work on and tweak and refine that process. And there's some quality programs that let us go about doing this, and we will study these in the course. In fact, we're going to study total quality management, revisiting that as a philosophy. We'll do that pretty quickly in the course, but recognizing that there is no finish line. Everything could be better. So if we recognize, if we examine the study of and the implementation of organizational design as a process and leave the door open for adjustment, recognize it's a process, not just an event, that can take a lot of this pressure off that we always put on ourselves about, well, what's the right thing to do? You know, a lot of leaders, or a lot of what could be good leaders don't become leaders because they're afraid of making a mistake, or rather they're afraid to make a decision that results in a mistake. And we just got to recognize that's all part of the process. It is about a process in terms of we try, we fail, we learn from it, we try again. And it's a process in terms of everything, no matter how good it is, can always be better. So we want to look at it as very much a process. A word that gets thrown around a lot nowadays is business model. And while I'm not big on buzzwords, because of the reasons I talked about earlier, I do like it when you've got some labels that really can have some merit and some power and some payoff for you. And business model is one of those. When we talk about business models, we're talking about our specific approach. Maybe approach is a better word than business model. But we're looking at how do we structure the organization. What are our specific goals and our philosophies behind those goals, and then we build systems in place that incorporate those philosophies with the idea of helping us reach those goals. And by reaching those goals, we have a payoff or a value proposition, a value we deliver on behalf of or for our constituents, our customers, our stakeholders, or whoever it is we serve. So the business model is kind of that big term that captures what I mentioned on an earlier slide, which is that the organizational design is the means, a mechanism, a process, and so forth that helps us accomplish the goal. So business model is a good word, a good power word to be adding to our vocabulary because it forces us to look at the component parts. It forces us to look at how we do it here and why we do it here and all those kind of things. Systems, systems, systems. We're really talking about a great system when we're talking about a great organization. If you look at the market leaders, if you look at those that are the best of breed companies, those that we line up and buy books on how to study what they do, what they really have in place is a great set of systems. A lot of people will like to argue that the great ones like, you know, your McDonald's and your Disney's and your Starbucks and some of those are great cultures, but that culture wouldn't go anywhere if they didn't have systems in place that let them consistently serve the group that they serve, and that would enable them to replicate that culture and those systems and so forth to serve more customers or stakeholders or whatever we call them in other markets. So systems is, I think, the ultimate power word, because systems equals consistency, equals replication, and equals the ability to take the business and scale it. That's another one of those MBA buzzwords that it's become kind of popular. You know, systems may not be exciting enough. You'll hear people say we need to be able to build a model you can scale. When we say scale it, we mean be able to take it and replicate it and all this. And those are words we're going to look at in a moment. But the key thing is looking at the organization as a set of systems. The more we systemize, the more we can replicate the success and work out the non-successes or the failures. So systems is very much a power word, and I want to encourage you to think about that as we're entering our philosophical study of organizational design. One of the keys to building great systems so that we can replicate the success of the organization and so that we can scale the business and all these other things, and so that we can accomplish the purpose of the organization, parts of how we go about building those systems, we borrow and we modify and we even steal here and there from what works for other organizations. I think it was Picasso, in fact, that said, good artists copy and great artists steal. I mean, if something's working for an organization, we take it and we borrow it, we modify it, and we adapt it, and that lets us then take something that works for another organization and put it to work in our organization. In fact, a lot of really great innovations were just adaptations. If you've ever used a roll-on deodorant, the creators of roll-on deodorant got that idea from the ballpoint pen. The idea being, well, why couldn't we do deodorant this way? So innovation a lot of times just means being able to take something and adapt it a little bit, or either adapt the existing technology to our goals, or to take and it doesn't just have to be technology, adapt anything that works in someone else's business model, anything that works for them, take it, tweak it, adapt it, and modify it, and turn it into something that can work for us. So a lot of innovation just means improving upon an existing system. In fact, if you want to read more about this, some more examples, in my blog at drburt.com, if you type in the keyword innovation, it'll pull up one of my entries from a couple of years ago that talks about how places like Walmart, the only thing Walmart really has done is modify and replicate what was working for some stores, other stores, competitors, and then take that and turn that into something that would work for them. So a lot of innovation is not original or even that creative. It's just adapting something that comes from another idea. And that's, once again, why we're going to study this entire textbook of organizational design, so that you'll have in front of you a lot of ideas that you study and dissect and decide, would this work? Would it not work? Do I like this? Do I not like this? Or if you want to raise questions, if it becomes something that you read about and say, I don't fully get that, hey, instructor, tell me more about this. And so you and I can work on it, reflect on it, or whatever. We'll have at our disposal. But if we want to be creative, a lot of times, folks, being creative or innovative, which is one of the main tasks that we've got to be doing to grow an organization, if we want to be innovative, a lot of times all we've got to do is adapt what's working for someone else. Good systems are important because if it's a system, it can be replicated. In his book, The E-Myth Revisited, and if you've got any interest at all in owning your own business, or if you love someone who owns their own business or wants to own their own business, I strongly encourage you, read the book of Michael Gerber. Michael Gerber's original book was called The E-Myth, which stands for the entrepreneurial myth, but he calls it the E-Myth. There's a whole series of these books. They're all pretty good, and they're kind of repetitive, but they're all very, very good. And what he talks about in there is how a lot of small businesses stay small or go out of business because they can't be replicated. They're people dependent and not process dependent. That business depends on the owner being in it and running it, and there's no one else that can take over for the owner. And so as a result, if the owner's not able to work harder or more hours or whatever, the business can't be grown. It can't be replicated. You can't replicate that human being. You can't replicate the business. So a good business is going to be systems dependent and not people dependent, or be process dependent, not people dependent, is how Gerber puts it. And so very important, and this is also something that can benefit an organization of any size. If we can study what's working systems wise and develop a system that can be replicated, then we can grow in all kinds of different directions. And in the fine print here, I've got the words economies of scope. This is similar to the notion of economies of scope, and that we can take a business and be able to grow that into other markets, which is simply almost like a transplant, basically, which is different than economies of scale, which means that volume gives us some competitive advantages and price advantages and some leverage. So there's some differences there. And again, I don't like the buzzwords because the buzzwords get a little bit confusing. Your textbook, we'll worry about what the textbook says when we get there. But bottom line, replication. Replication means being able to take what works, scale it, replicate it, and utilize it in other markets. And good systems that are built by great leaders like you can be replicated. In fact, if you want to really have value in the organization, you want to become that person that can hire and train and develop other leaders, because you then become the golden goose. If you are that person that can develop and grow and nurture Even if you grow people that may climb higher on the ladder than you do, so what? Because you are a crucial part of the organization, and you kind of become the golden goose in that you continually produce value for the organization, especially in the area of human resources. So replication, big, huge power word, very important thing to think about as we look at why do we study organizational design? What's the payoff for us becoming experts in organizational design? And of course, the big one, ladies and gentlemen, the big one, the why you are here, why this is your track, why you're joining me on the leadership track, because this is what you bring to the table. I mentioned Jack Welch earlier, a powerful quote of his, and I don't have it in front of me, so I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he was talking about in his biography that was published in 1998 or 1999 as he was approaching retirement. In his autobiography, he was answering the question of, what's the future going to hold for the manager or the leader? And he was saying, even as we grow more and more in terms of our informational capabilities, we are awash right now in information. He said, even if that gets more, you're still going to have a leader who can step up and say, okay, of all these choices, we're going to go with this one. Of all this analysis, I believe this one's the most accurate. We're going to go with this one, because the computers can do all kinds of telling us what might happen, but it's the leader that's got to step up and say, okay, this is the path we're going to pursue. That's what you're all about. That's why you're here, and that's what organizational design promises to deliver. If we have an understanding of how do we structure the organization in such a way that it focuses our resources like a laser beam toward accomplishing that purpose, then we can make something happen. And that's why this leadership idea, the notion of leadership, the training in leadership, the experience in leadership is going to be something that's going to have great power, more relevance, and more significance in years to come. And so while leadership's very philosophical and its definitions may vary, in terms of how do we define that, the scientific side of understanding that the toolkit we've got that we can work with in organizational design, that's just going to be one more thing and one more set of a combination of hard and soft skills that are going to help you be a better leader by having the ability to get that organization focused toward whatever purpose or whatever path we're on. So leadership most definitely can benefit from a good understanding of organizational design and development. So anyhow, bringing it all back full circle here, why exactly are we here together? We're embarking on this journey of 7 weeks. I've tried to just sort of float out there some philosophical things to think about, some broader view frame things to think about, mostly just to help sort of get our focus where it needs to be as we embark on the journey to understanding organizational design. Our mission, our quest, our journey is going to be together finding what will benefit you. This being an online course, you're going to go off and study pretty much on your own. And it's not my intention just to throw you out there and leave you all alone, but I want you, because we're only going to be together for 7 weeks. It'd be nice if we could have a lifelong relationship, and I would welcome that. I'm not discouraging that. But the bottom line is, we're going to be together intensively for about 7 weeks, and then you're going to be out there on your own making decisions. So what we want to do is immerse you in this study now. Get you out there studying all about organizational design we can find, and together, through the journals and through the assignments you'll do individually, find out what's going to be of greatest benefit to you. So we can, to some degree, folks, we can customize part of our learning here together. Of course, number 2 there, the payoff. What is going to be in this for you? I hope we'll enjoy our time together here, but this is not insignificant, the investment you're making to be here. So it's great that we have fun, and it's great that you grow together. It's great that we do all the things we're going to do, but there's got to be a payoff for you. We've got to constantly be able to say, okay, this week, here we are, week 2 of 7, and man, I've already got some things I can put to work for me now, or that you be able to see that there's going to be a payoff. That's one of my real promises to you, is that we're going to not waste your time learning a bunch of concepts, but instead get studied and focused on training that's going to help you find out, or training that's going to help you see a payoff for what you're doing. By you seeing that payoff, by you being a better leader, bullet point number 3, it helps you benefit others. I have no stronger belief, leaders, than that what God has in mind for us is to take the talents that we've been given, and of course we've all heard the parable of the talents, so we won't go into that, but to take these talents we've been given and not just reinvest the talents and grow them, but to be a benefit to others. As a leader, ladies and gentlemen, you can do incredible things in the lives of the people you're around. And that doesn't just have to be in an official capacity in your job, but I'm betting that's going to be where most of us spend the most of our time. That's going to be the most significant investment all of us on this planet make, is in our livelihoods. So you as the leader can not only see a payoff yourself for being better at what you do, but you can benefit the others in your life, the people that you earn the right to call your followers. You can help benefit them in their lives, and that's very exciting to think about. Think about you getting better at what you do so that you see a payoff and you help benefit others, and also to help you do this with greater efficiency. One of the reasons I called my book The Great Game of Networking, I train business owners and marketers and professionals how to go out in the world and network, build professional networks. I called it The Great Game of Networking because I believe as much as we invest as time and energy and hours and blood, sweat, and tears in learning our careers, in learning our professions, as much time as we invest in that, doggone it, it ought to be fun. And the better you are at what you do, the more fun it can be. And by being better, we also can be more efficient. So time that we spend stewing over decisions or stewing over trying to learn new things or wondering which way is the right way to go, wrong way, making decisions, all these things, the better we get at it and the better understanding we have of the tools that are available to us, we'll become better, and by being better we'll be more efficient, which means more of our energy then can be spent doing things we like with the people we love and not worrying so much about fitting into somebody else's goals. So our mission, our quest, and our journey, folks, is to learn about organizational design, not just so you can get through the class and not just so you can pass some standardized test about it, but so you can go out there and be the leader that God wants you to be. And you then can enjoy all the benefits that you deserve to get from helping others be as great as they can be. And I know that may sound a little bit high and mighty, that may sound a little bit idealistic, but I got to tell you, folks, I've been on the other end of that spectrum, and it's a whole lot better to get up in the morning and feel like you're going out and making a difference than just going to a job. And I know you're that kind of person, and my mission and the quest and journey that I'm on is to help you be even better at doing that. So thank you for making this journey with me, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say about the first few chapters of our textbook.